Bluffing, future splatter, and vertical transportation. Join us for these topics and more today on the Passport Game Studios podcast, where adventure awaits. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Passport Game Studios podcast, where adventure awaits. I'm your host, Chaz Marler, social media and support manager here at Passport Game Studios. And joining me via the magic of the internet again this week are going to be Ryan Skinner and Scott Morris. Now, for today's discussion, we're going to be talking about games that you can play on an elevator. No, not really. I'm just bluffing, because today's topic is all about bluffing. Really. Thank you for joining me again, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure to have you here with me, and I'll leave it up to you guys to determine whether or not that was a bluff.
Yeah, hey, this is Scott. Glad to be back. I was looking forward to the elevator thing, actually. Figured that would be like an up and down conversation. Dun-dun-dun-ching.
Scott, in case this is someone's first episode, remind us, what is it that you do here at Passport?
I'm head of custodial services at Passport. No, I am the president at Passport, so it's my responsibility to act as general manager for the company. I'm these two guys' boss by day and a superhero by night.
And sometimes you literally are cleaning up messes. Or, okay, figuratively cleaning up messes.
Figuratively, literally, no. Yeah, that's the low end of the job.
Sure.
Well, yes, you are right that you are joined by two other gentlemen. The other one is Ryan Skinner. And Ryan, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do in this realm.
Sure. I am the marketing manager here at Passport Game Studios, so my job consists of marketing our entire line of games and making sure that everybody out there knows who Passport is, what we have to offer, all the awesome games we make or co-publish with our partners, and where they can get them, when they can get them. Just me basically shoving games down your throats on the internet.
On the elevators.
on elevators, right.
Now, no one is ever going to want to get in an elevator with us ever again. Right. They're going to see us at shows. I'll take the next one.
We're going to set up Trajan on an elevator at BGG.
There you go. I would do that.
You can just ride it up and down in the Hyatt there and just like have it sitting on the floor.
That would actually be a great
really
event.
Funny. It'd probably get really hot and sweaty and smelly and not pleasant after a little while,
yeah.
But I mean,
everybody would walk away going do 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 do.
Games to play by elevator music.
There you go.
That's right.
I think we were supposed to have another show we were supposed to be doing right now.
Yeah.
Riding elevators or not, one thing that we're always doing in our spare time is also playing games. And so, Ryan, what game have you been playing most recently?
A new game that I played most recently would be Captain Sonar, which is a pretty new release. I think it just released at Gen Con or right around thereabouts, or I think it's hit retail as well now. So anyway, Captain Sonar, yeah, it's if you haven't heard of it, it's a pretty wild game that plays real time, trying to sink opponents' teams' submarines. If that sounds like it would be kind of hectic, it is. You've got 4 different roles that each player on your team, you've got 2 4-player teams, and each person has a unique role, whether you're the captain, the first mate, the engineer, or the radio operator, and each person has different obligations to the team to try to track down and assault the other submarine in this gridded area. It's very, very interesting. It's a really unique game. Very cool.
Oddly enough, it's also a game that would work really well on an elevator, because you could start at the top floor, and then, when you're the captain in the submarine, when he says, dive, you could actually hit like the basement and have the elevator go down.
That's right.
And submerge.
You could do that.
It all fits together.
In loosely shaped ways.
Right.
So continuing this idea of games that you could play in an elevator at a hotel, Scott, what's the game you've played most recently?
Mine does not fit that theme at all. I've been playing I guess you would call it a resource management game, Grand Austria Hotel. Came out last year, 2015.
You could totally play that in a hotel in an elevator.
You could totally play it in a hotel in an elevator, but it would take up a little bit of room.
Right.
It's a really, really cool game. I really have enjoyed it. A friend of mine in Dallas, Benny, turned me on to it, and we played it, and I think it was a combination of I crushed everybody in my first game, and I really enjoyed the whole idea of it. I'm a big Wes Anderson fan, if you are familiar with like the Royal Tenenbaums and movies like that. And there is a movie he made called The Grand Budapest Hotel with Ray Fiennes, which is one of his funnier movies. And this game just reminded me of playing something that felt like it was that movie. So I really enjoyed it. You have guests, you have food and drink you have to serve them, and then you have them retire to their rooms. And it's a little bit of area control / set collection / resource management. And I've really enjoyed it. It's been fun.
Nice. Yeah, I played it once. It was really cool.
What have you been playing, Chaz?
Oh, I almost skipped myself. Yes.
Yes.
Well, what game that I've been playing recently.
In an elevator.
The game I've played most recently is a game called Junk Art. This is actually a dexterity game played with 3-dimensional components. Easy to play, hard to say. But in this game, you receive different cards, which will be a different color and shape of a component that's in a pile in the middle of the table. And based on the cards that you receive from your opponents, you're going to have to take the piece that matches that color and shape and add it to this sculpture that you're building in front of you, with the goal of building the largest, tallest sculpture out of all your opponents. But the way the pieces are specifically designed to not really fit together all that well. So every third turn, your sculpture turns into a collapsed heap in front of you, and you kind of have to start over again.
Nice.
But it was a very interesting experience. And I think one that specifically is not conducive to playing on an elevator, because with all the jostling up and down, your sculpture's just going to fall apart at a whim. So cannot not elevator endorsed. I'm sorry.
So I'll ask the question this week, and I'll kind of shake it up. What? What is that all about? Breaking the fourth wall or something? I don't know.
I had a script written.
So of Captain Sonar, which is real time, versus Grand Austria Hotel, which is resource management, which is usually more up Ryan's alley, which would you rather have played?
I think I would lean towards Captain Sonar. I know in Captain Sonar, on each side, there are 4 different positions, one of them being the captain who's barking out orders. And so given my affinity for doing that, whether people want me to or not, I think I'm drawn a little bit more towards Captain Sonar. A hush falls on the crowd.
Oh, I lost you for a second.
It went quiet for a second, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I totally picked Grand Austria Hotel. Bluffing! I picked Captain Sonar, which allows you to basically boss people around.
Cool.
Right.
Ryan, which one would you rather have played? I think I have a gut feeling, but...
You would think, right? Grand Austria or Junk Art. So having played Grand Austria, and I did enjoy it, but I've not played Junk Art, and I'm super intrigued because it's something that is not usually my wheelhouse. So maybe it's surprising you, but I think I would actually choose to play Junk Art if someone put those 2 games in front of me and said, pick one. Mm-hmm. I'm actually really intrigued by that one.
That is a surprise.
And maybe it is just because I have not played it versus have played the other. If I'd have played both, maybe I'd choose the strategy game. But yeah, I'm pretty intrigued by Junk Art.
I, too, am intrigued by Junk Art. One of my favorite games to play with my family is a game called Hamster Roll, which came out a long time ago, like 2000, which is scary to think that's 16 years ago. But it's a really cool dexterity game where you have to like put these things onto a wheel and not have things fall off. And dexterity games just always seem to be very fun for families. And Junk Art, I have seen, not the regular version of Junk Art, I have actually only seen the big giant version of Junk Art that they had at Gen Con. And there was just laughter and joking and people, whoa, going on around the table. I would like to participate in that. So I would probably lean towards Junk Art myself. When it comes to real-time games, I have to say this. I only play real-time games when I am with two specific people in my life. And unfortunately, they do not live anywhere near me. So Captain Sonar, as much fun as it sounds, I would have to wait until I see my good friends Jackie and Anna, because quite frankly, playing a real-time game with Jackie is a complete experience in and of itself. So,
well, I can tell you that they do have a turn-based version of Captain Sonar in the box as well, if you were playing with fewer than 8 people. So I have not tried that yet, and I'm super intrigued to do so. As a regular strategy gamer, I like being able to think things through a little bit, as opposed to the chaos of real time. I've only done the real time mode a couple times, and it was definitely chaos. But yeah, there is a turn base, so you could try that at least until you get your real time buddies together.
I hope you're not bluffing me.
Oh, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. No, I'm not.
With that segue, Chaz, take it away.
I don't get it. I don't see the connection there. Okay, yes, bluffing games. Let's talk about bluffing games. And I have a couple of questions to get your thoughts on bluffing games. But first things first, before I get to that, let us, as we always do, let's provide some examples of bluffing games. Starting, since we're here from PGS, pulling one off the PGS shelf here, starting with a game called Warehouse 51. Now, this is a game that is a combination of bluffing with an auction mechanism, because players are going to be playing the part of several different well-to-do collectors who have all gathered around Warehouse 51, which is being decommissioned, and all of its valuable artifacts are being sold off to the highest bidder. Now, each of these artifacts has a special power and ability as well, so the players are going to be auctioning and bluffing and trying to obtain these artifacts to get them into their possession, get the most points, and win the game. Now, this game came out, I think, in, 2015?
Correct.
And there are one thing that's really interesting about this game that seems to be one of the unique aspects is what happens to your money after you win a bid. Because you don't put your money back into the central pool when you spend it, back into the bank. Your money that you spend actually goes to your other players, making this very unique, strange equilibrium with the currency in the game, the funds available in the game. And so I wanted to find out if you guys have any experience with Warehouse 51 and what kind of bluffing experience, tales of betrayal, if any, you've experienced with this, and leading off into other games as well.
Yeah, so I'll jump in here, talking about Warehouse 51 a little bit more. The bluffing element of Warehouse 51, to anchor that to that mechanic, this call or this this conversation. There's a mechanic in the game where you are going to have artifacts that you're going to be bidding on that are actually going to be counterfeit. And only a few of the counterfeit items in the entire deck of cards. And so that's where the bluffing element can, I think, come in most prevalent in Warehouse 51, as far as, the Hammer of Mjolnir comes out and you happen to know it's counterfeit, but you bid it up to try to convince your opponents that it's super valuable and make them try to outbid you because they're trying to add it to their colored sets or what have you. So I think that's where the bluffing element comes in there. Which I think is interesting. It's not a super prevalent part of the game, I don't think, but it can really influence some key purchasing, if you guys would agree, disagree.
I think there's two very interesting things in what you just said there. Yeah, that the bluffing element, while it's not as prevalent, does add this entire layer to the game that makes it puts a little bit of a twist on it. The second interesting thing, I think, is that you actually pronounce Mjolnir perfectly.
Meow, meow.
I'm a nerd who enjoys comic books and movies and the like. I mean, it's not that uncommon, I think, these days, right?
I'm sincerely impressed. And
all right, well, thank you.
I'd be more impressed if he could lift it.
Hey, challenge accepted.
Yeah, I think Warehouse 51 is not a bluffing game at its core, but the way the rules and mechanisms are put together to set, collect, and bid encourages the bluffing. And the thing that I have really enjoyed about Warehouse 51 is that you can make it as hardcore or as casual of a bluffing game as your group will dictate. And I think that's kind of the cooler part about it.
In what way can you do that?
Well, in the sense of you, again, only know a certain number of the artifacts that are counterfeit. They're like most games with hidden information. There becomes a point where people will forget. And they'll say, oh, I forgot what this card is that's sitting between Ryan and I, or I forgot what this card is sitting between Chaz and I. And they'll take a look at it. And if your group is really, really heavy into bluffing, they immediately can jump into, oh, really? Oh, you just forgot, right? Like you just forgot when that card comes up for bidding that now you need to look at this, right? And the hardcore people can get into it of, are they bluffing all the time? Is this really what he's talking about? Or did he truthfully, honestly forget? And it becomes this meta layer of bluffing over an auction game. Whereas if you have a group that's more casual and more forgiving, I guess is maybe the better way to say it. When people have moments like that, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, just look at the card. It's all cool. So it can be driven heavily by the group dynamics.
I think something that might go hand in hand then with bluffing, maybe it's just another way to say it, is just the dissemination of misinformation, right? Whether that is outright true stuff that you're just trying to make people believe it's not true, or whether you are absolutely trying to lie to them or not. So the game that I wanted to kind of contrast against the bluffing in Warehouse 51 is a social game where bluffing, I think, comes in a lot more in that genre, which is the One Night Ultimate series, which is your werewolf, your daybreak, vampire, and aliens that they just kickstarted over at Bezier. So I'm a big fan of those. Though, to be fair, I've not gotten my copy of Vampire to the table. We kind of took a social game break with my group, and that was like last summer, and it's been like a year since we played One Night. But that said,
we will only play games that are not social at this table moving forward.
Not the big talky games. We went through a stage where we were playing One Night and Two Rooms and a Boom and all that stuff. Like that was the entire night for several weeks, and we were like, okay, let's take a break, and we got back to traditional board games. But anyway, I really like those, and I think the bluffing element is much more prominent, like I said, in those kind of social deduction-y type of games as opposed to in Warehouse 51. It's a very different application of bluffing, where in One Night, your bluffing is much more pronounced and it's much more core to the experience. You are, whether you're a werewolf or whether you're a villager, there is incentive to bluff and lie to all the players to some degree. If you're a werewolf, you're trying to, of course, bluff that you are not a werewolf so you do not get killed. And if you are playing as one of the villager roles, it is often beneficial to outright lie or bluff and spread that misinformation about something to try to draw out other information from the other players. And it's an interesting dynamic there that takes place in those games that isn't, part of Warehouse 51. It doesn't have that level of bluffing, but both definitely capture that same feel of, can I trust what this person is saying or not? Which I think is fun.
If I can jump in, something that you said in your description of One Night Ultimate Werewolf struck me because it contrasts deeply to the game I picked. You mentioned the dissemination of misinformation being pivotal. Darn it, I nailed dissemination of misinformation. I stumbled on pivotal. Yep. It's really important in a bluffing game. But the game I picked is the opposite of that. And my game is Spyfall. Because in Spyfall, I don't think the dissemination of misinformation is really what that game's bluffing is about. It's the opposite. It's trying to convince people that and find social clues and actually give hints to the people who know hints. So actually passing along disguised but truthful information to each other, but doing it in such a way that only certain people will pick up on it. And so obfuscating the information that you are giving to one another.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Big words with Chaz.
So in that respect, they're both bluffing games, but they take completely opposite approaches, which I didn't even think of until I heard you say that phrase. So
right.
I'm interested to see, Scott, the game that you've picked. I'm interested to see how that combines these elements, if any, or if it introduces something new.
Sure. So I have a dream in life. It's funny. I have all these like little micro dreams. Like most people have dreams of like, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a world famous athlete, or, an artist or something like that. Like one of my little micro dreams in life is I want to make a game that is titled That Belongs in a Museum. because I love Indiana Jones and everything about Indiana Jones. And Warehouse 51 was a game that was produced by FunForge and Passport conjointly before I came here, actually before any of us had come here. And if I was here, I probably would have pushed for that for this game, because it very much feels like that. You're dealing with, the warehouse where the Ark of the Covenant is locked away, and you're these billionaires trying to buy Mjolnir or Meow Meow or whatever you want to pronounce it as, and a unicorn's horn, and just all these amazing artifacts. And it's really it's just fits that kind of genre to it. Ironically, the game I chose to kind of compare and contrast is designed by same people. So Warehouse 51 is designed by Bruno Faiduti, Sergio Halaban, and Andre Zatz. And anyone who knows me or knows my history, Sergio is a good friend of mine, and we worked together at my previous role with Arcane Wonders, working on a little bluffing game called Sheriff of Nottingham, who most people have heard of. And Sheriff is very, very interesting because it is 100%, 110% bluffing. And not just like bluffing, but like double blind bluffing. I have played probably more games of Sheriff than any other game other than probably Takedo. And it's amazing the meta that happens in that game of, are you lying? Are you lying that you're lying that you're lying? Are you telling the truth to make me think you're lying? There's so many things that happen in that experience. Whereas, like I was saying before, that Warehouse 51 kind of has this like overlay of bluffing based on your group and how things happen through the bidding and the auctioning of the items. Sheriff is much more in your face. You're going to be bluffing. And the interesting part about that, the dissemination of misinformation, you can start that immediately. One of the very first games I ever played of Sheriff of Nottingham was with friends of mine, and we sat down, and one of the guys goes, all right, I'm going to tell the truth the whole way through the game, just so everybody knows, okay, just don't call me, I'm going to tell the truth. And the first 3 or 4 times people called him, he was telling the truth, so we're like, okay, he's probably going to keep telling the truth all the way through. And then, of course, on the very last turn, he brings in 5 contraband and, like, totally blows everybody away in terms of scoring. So it's that meta environment, and it really is. Truthfully, in my opinion, I think that if somebody said, we want to play a game that is 100% about bluffing, Sheriff of Nottingham is really it. What you were talking about with Spyfall, it is if I were to rename Spyfall, it would be a wink is as good as a nod to a blind man, which is a line from Monty Python, because you're trying to, don't worry, that's right, this is good to get the people that you know to know what you know. And when it comes to One Night Ultimate Werewolf, the same type of thing happens, but you're not trying to do it with everyone. You're just trying to do it with like the certain people that you're aligned with, so to speak. So I think it's a really good smattering of 3 different games that have a level of bluffing or a core of bluffing, but do it all very differently in a way that, depending on how your game group likes it, you can take it.
Yeah, One Night Ultimate Werewolf seems to be based on that misinformation. Spyfall seems to be based on personal charisma, and Sheriff seems to be a combination of the two.
Yeah, seems reasonable.
My favorite Ultimate One Night Werewolf play is when people just come out, you lift your head up, you open your eyes, and somebody will go, I'm a werewolf.
Yep. Oh, yeah. That's super fun. That's super
great.
Fun to do, because that just throws a wrench in everyone's expectations right away.
Everything.
It's like, okay, is he really? Or is he trying to... What's going on there? What's in his head?
Now, I have seen in
Warehouse
51 plays, I have seen people try to make side wagers and side bets where people are like, hey, don't... Because part of Warehouse 51 is not just the set collection and the auctioning, but who you want to win certain auctions so that the money can shift around the table. And I've always found it to be one of the most unique mechanics, because when someone wins a bid, they have to give the money to the player on their left. So if you're on my right and you're bidding on something that I know is a actual artifact and not a counterfeit, I may want you to actually win that so you can get me the money. So there's a little bit of like egging on of like, come on, Chaz, you outbid Ryan. Like, you go one higher, one more, right? Right. There's a little bit of pressuring, and then it becomes, are you telling me that to bluff me? Or are you telling me, like, why are you telling me these things, right? So I always enjoy that.
Right, so it's not so much tethered to just trying to get people to waste their money on fakes, but
right.
sometimes you have your own, motivation to get the money. Yeah, that's cool.
Well, that in a way, you've kind of answered the big question about bluffing games that I wanted to ask, because the example you gave with One Night Ultimate Werewolf, where as soon as you open your eyes, someone just says, "Yep, I'm a werewolf," that's a valid strategy. But it makes me wonder, is bluffing the same as just outright lying, or is there a subtle difference to this, a different nuance?
I think there's a difference. I think you can be bluffing while telling the truth, in that kind of way, I guess. Using that example, you might actually be a werewolf in one night, and you wake up and you say, "I'm a werewolf," and there is a reason why people won't immediately just say, "Okay, well then game over," right? Like, let's all just vote to kill them. I mean, depending on the roles you're playing with. If you have a Tanner role where they're trying to get themselves killed, that really brings that whole thing full circle. And so if you've got someone that's like volunteering information, even if it might be true, that makes it so that there is potential misinformation out there. Even if the information is true, the people are not sure if it is, and so it comes across as misinformation, I guess, in a way. So yeah, I think you can tell the truth and still be bluffing, because you're essentially playing on their knowledge and making them doubt and question what they think they might know, if that makes sense.
I'd agree with that. Bluffing has its information rooted in the truth, whereas lying is just flat out false.
Right.
Ooh, that's an elegant definition of it.
Metaphysics with Scott.
Was there anything else on the topic of bluffing that you wanted to close with?
Have you ever played Spyfall on an elevator?
You're my best friend.
No, but for some reason now I want to play Two Rooms and a Boom in 2 elevators.
Whoa.
Oh, boy.
Mind blown.
Alan Girding's mind just exploded in Dallas. No, I don't have anything to add about bluffing.
All right.
Or do I?
Well, ding! 3rd floor, menswear, womenswear, and viewer questions. See what I did there?
It was very clever.
Slick. Very
Thank you.
good.
It took me an hour and a half to think of that. Okay.
Fantastic.
Today's viewer question comes from Josh Eisbrenner, who took the time to ask us on our Facebook page the following couplet of questions. He asks, will you being Passport Game Studios, will you be distributing more Splotter games in the future? And what's coming next year?
Well, Ryan's our marketing guy. Why don't we let him answer that?
Oh, man, on the spot. We are doing more with Splotter, which is awesome, because as a newfound addict of the cult of Food Chain Magnate, I can't wait to play more of their stuff myself and bring it over. So we have Indonesia and the Great Zimbabwe that are both coming. We're hoping to have one of those possibly as a playable demo at Board Game Geek Con. So that's a possibility. We're working on that. And then it should be releasing towards the end of the year there, right around that time. And then another probably coming early 2017. So yeah, we definitely have more coming there.
For listeners who may not be familiar with the Splotter catalog, are there a couple of quick examples of some Splotter games that have been published in the past?
Yeah, Roads and Boats is probably the one that most people know. Antiquities is another one that is, I think, out of print right now and very popular. There's quite a bit. If you go to their website, just splottershop.com has all their information about their games that are out there. I think they actually list out older games that are out of print and their current games that are available right now. So it's good stuff.
As far as stuff beyond Splotter for 2017, I don't know if we've got anything we want to talk to yet, Scott?
I don't think there's anything we can announce yet, but I can tell you that we have a very strong partnership with Splotter. To put it in perspective, we have helped them with Food Chain Magnet, and they've just done such a good job. The game is so good, and it's so much fun. The Food Chain Magnet title itself has sold more units in the last 7 months than all the other Splotter titles combined. And to put it in perspective, Roads and Boats is like 20 years old. That's pretty amazing. So obviously we've been very successful with them. They're great people to work with. They make great games. So we're definitely looking forward to what we've got, coming the rest of this year. We've got another reprint of Food Chain Magnate coming at the end of this year. And then, as Ryan said, Zimbabwe and Indonesia later this year as well. But we will have hopefully something next year in the beginning of the year we can talk a little more publicly about that will more than likely excite a lot of people.
Ooh, I'm already starting to get all a tingle.
Cliffhanger. I'll say this. If we get the one I want, it's my favorite Splatter game. And I'll leave it at that.
I guess we will just have to wait with bated breath until that information is disseminated, and hopefully it won't be misinformation once it finally comes our way.
I was just going to say, it's probably wrong to end this episode on a cliffhanger when we're talking about bluffing. Dun, 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 dun.
Like, yeah, we're bringing every Splatter game ever, JK.
All right. Well, gentlemen, it's no lie that we have run out of time for this episode. So I want to thank you both for joining me again here in the virtual studio. We invite you to continue the discussion about bluffing and the other topics that have been discussed on this episode over at our Facebook page at facebook.com/Passport Game Studios and on Twitter where we are at Passport Games. And if you have a question that we may be able to answer for you on an upcoming episode, feel free to send it to us at either of those two locations, being sure to also include the hashtag PGS podcast. But for now, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Passport Game Studios podcast. Join us again in 2 weeks for the next installment, in which we'll be exploring another topic about board games and the board game industry. Between now and then, we'll also be posting some game overviews and playthroughs on our YouTube channel over at youtube.com/Passport Game Studios. We welcome your comments and questions and may even feature them on an upcoming episode. So contact us and let us know what's on your mind. Until then, thanks for joining us, and remember that not only board games, but life too is a journey where adventure awaits.